Good morning, everyone. Beautiful morning, special morning to be together. So I'm going to start off this morning a little different than my usual. As you all know, we're in the middle of our raffle, and we did a fun thing. Basically, for all those in the class that supported, we did a little raffle, and the winner of this particular little fun raffle got to choose the topic of today's class. And so the winner chose an interesting topic. So if you remember, before Shavuot, 2 weeks ago, or 3 weeks ago now, uh, I spoke about a new way of looking at the Ten Commandments. Instead of reading the Ten Commandments vertically on each tablet, to read the Ten Commandments horizontally. So I did a bit of a deep dive into the first and sixth commandment, I am Hashem your God, and do not murder. The winner asked me to do a little deep dive into the third and eighth commandment. So what is the third commandment? You shall not take my name in vain. And the eighth commandment is stealing, or really kidnapping. So if you read the third and eighth commandments of the Ten Commandments, essentially the relationship between these two is, if someone is stealing, they may feel that stealing is only between them and the victim. But it's also a crime against God, whose name will ultimately be taken falsely. So that's the nature of the connection. But I wanna dive a little deeper into this today. The old Chassidim of the shtetl in Europe, they would tell a story about a person who was flippant with their financial obligations. And it reached a point where the debtors felt that they had no recourse. But the only way that they had recourse was to tattletale on this person and tell the Rebbe, tell the leader of their community, and tell their Rebbe of the situation. When they came and told the Rebbe, the sage, the Chassidic master, he summoned this man and he asked him, tell me, is it true what they tell me, that you borrow money and you don't repay, that you buy on credit and then you evade payment? All of a sudden, he gets all defensive. But Rebbe, haven't you taught us that the whole world is nothing, that material cares are nothing, that money is nothing? So why are they making a fuss about a few rubles? It's all nothing. So the Rebbe smiles and he says, in that case, how about if we take this nothing, and here the Rebbe pointed to the body of the spiritual fellow, and we stretch it out upon this nothing, meaning in front of him the table, and with this nothing, he pulled out his belt, we administer a dozen lashes to the first nothing. It's an old humorous tale from the old country. But I think behind this humorous tale, there lies a serious question. If, as King David in the Psalms says, the world and all it contains is God's, if everything belongs to God, if the nothing really exists, if we're all, in the words of Mark Twain, but a dim puff in the blaze of the Milky Way, then is there really such a thing as theft? Can something that in truth doesn't really belong to you be taken from you? And the answer lies in the eighth commandment, because God said, in case you were wondering, in case my entire build-up to this moment today got you, yeah, really, yeah, the whole world is nothing. Maybe it's nothing. So that's why God says in the eighth commandment, you shall not steal. Those are the rules of the game. But maybe that's what it is. Maybe it's just a game. Maybe God is saying, let's make believe that the house belongs to Tom, and let's make believe that the car belongs to Harry, and now Harry, you shouldn't burn down Tom's house, and Tom, you're not allowed to use Harry's car without his permission. Is that really what it is? It's just a social construct. And this is why we need the third commandment. This is how we have to read these two commandments together. According to the Midrash, the third commandment, which is you shall not take God's name in vain, and the eighth commandment, you shall not steal, are actually one and the same. The Torah refers to financial fraud as the betrayal of God. Because, and this is explained by the great Talmudic sage Rabbi Akiva, in defrauding a fellow, in defrauding another person, you're defrauding the third party in their dealings. This is what Rabbi Akiva says in the Medrash. I'll explain. On the face of it, this can be understood along the lines of our social construct, our rules of the game thesis. The problem with stealing is not that a certain person's ownership has been violated, since, for the sake of this conversation, everything belongs to God anyway, but that the divine command, you shall not steal, has been transgressed. Think about it a second. It's not the social construct. God said, do not steal, not the random person wherever. But I'm going to go a step further. If that were the case, the Rebbe asks an amazing question. Why does Rabbi Akiva describe God as the third party in the dealings? Isn't God the only party? Aren't we saying that God's car has been stolen? that it's not Tom's house being burnt down, it's God's house being burnt down. It's not Harry's car being stolen, it's God's car being stolen. And the fact that God chose to register it in Harry's name is basically irrelevant, right? But Rabbi Akiva is being consistent. Remember the verse? The world and all it contains is God's. Rabbi Akiva, quoting this verse in the Talmud, interprets it to be saying that God acquired, God bequeathed, and rules God's world. What does it mean? Isn't it God's world because God created it? But if God bequeathed it, it's not God's world anymore. So what Rabbi Akiva is saying, and I know this is a little more complicated than my usual, but the Rebbe explains what Rabbi Akiva is saying here is that obviously it's because God created it. But then God desired to make God desired to make it God's in a deeper, more meaningful way by bequeathing it to us. To own a world because you made it is basically meaningless. In human terms, it's like dreaming up a life and trying to derive satisfaction from your own fantasy. For something to be real for us, it has to have an existence outside of ourselves. To derive pleasure from something, we have to share it with others. God desired, and again, I'm using metaphor so we understand this, but God desired to derive pleasure from the world that God created. And that's why it was given to us. And God asked us to share it with God. And that's why God says, Tom, this is your house. I mean it. It's really, truly yours. Now, this is what I want you to do with it. I want you to put a mezuzah, a little scroll, inscribed with the main points of your relationship to me on the doorpost. That's going to create a connection between me and you. I'm the creator and you're the bequeather. I want the kitchen of your house to be kosher. That's part of our relationship. I want it to be a place that shelters a moral family life, a place in which hospitality is extended to the needy, a place where Torah is studied, as so many of us sitting in our homes are studying Torah now. Of course, I could just put you in this house and to tell you to do all this without really giving it to you. But then you'd be doing these things mechanically, like a robot. Deep down, you would sense that it's not really your home, that the things you're doing are not really your achievement. And then it wouldn't ever truly be my home, meaning God's home either. It would just be a social construct, something that we all just made up. And that's why I gave it to you. To you sense it to be yours, because it really is. You experience what you make of it to be your own achievement, because it really is. And when you choose, with the free will that I have granted you, to invite me, God, into your home and make the home a home for God, it will become truly mine in a matter that I desire it to be mine. And please, God says, don't steal Harry's car, because I have a stake in every financial transaction that occurs between the two of you. When you deprive Harry of the ownership that I have given him over his piece of my world, then you're depriving me as well. You're taking my name in vain. You are making my ownership of my world all but meaningless. So let's go back. We have two commandments. We have, do not take my name in vain. Do not steal. Do you see the connection now? Directly connection. They're really one. Because when you steal, you're not allowing God to achieve God's desire of us making this place a world for God. So a question came in over here, and I'll answer it. What about stealing someone's peace of mind, and stealing joy with hatred, and stealing the subtle levels of life? That is a form of stealing. Stealing someone's time. Right? In Judaism, we've spoken about this so many times, that in Judaism, time is what we elevate. If you look at, we don't elevate space. We don't make space sacred. We make time sacred. So yes. Does it fall under the category of the eighth commandment? I'm not sure, but it is a form of stealing. So that's my take on the connection between the third and eighth commandment, as I was asked today to discuss. Now, I'm gonna stop the recording for now. We'll get some ideas, comments, thoughts, and if we have time, maybe we'll do something else as well.